Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your patience as we arrange for all our heads of government to exit their vehicles. We continue to wait, and in the interim, we ask your cooperation by placing your cellular telephones on silent or vibrate, please. So a timely reminder, could you find your phone, even if you think it's on silent, could you just double check for us, please, and ensure that it is silent or vibrate. But our heads of governments are arriving and they will be entering shortly. In the meantime, the Jamaica Military Band continues.
And welcome to the Jamaica Information Service live stream. We're coming to you live from the Montego Bay. Now you are witnessing the arrival of the heads of government of CARICOM. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is greeting each head, and then there will be the official proceeding of the heads of government and the flags of the 20 member countries of CARICOM, 15 members and 5 associate members. musical prelude by the talented Jamaica Military Band of the Jamaica Defense Force. On screen now, Prime Minister the Most Honorable Andrew Holness and Secretary General of CARICOM Ambassador Erwin LaRocque greeting each guest as they arrive. You are watching our live stream coverage of the opening ceremony of the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is chairman of CARICOM. He assumed that responsibility on July 1, and this will run until December 31. So we are standing by for the procession of the heads of government and, of course, the flag procession. So Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the Secretary General of CARICOM standing by to greet each guest as they arrive and to ensure that all heads are in place for the procession, which is coming up shortly. Thank you so much for tuning in to the JIS's live stream coverage. And a quick shout out to those who have sounded off in the comments, like Dawn Marie Williams, Jevon Jones, Anne Marie Kalia, Dejane Sandria Malcolm, Anne Marie Duncan. Thank you so much for tuning in to our live stream coverage. And please tell us, where are you watching from? And remember to share the stream so your family and friends can also share in this experience. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Lorraine Mendez.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the procession of the flags of our CARICOM member states. The procession of flags is carried out by the honor guards of the Jamaica Defense Force and the Jamaica National Service Corps. The Jamaica National Service Corps was recently established to focus on youth aged 18 to 23. It creates an avenue for young people to be fully empowered through national service. The young men and women spend 1 year within the Corps and can choose after service completion whether they will sign a longer contract with the Army. This new recruitment window provides training and incorporates prospects for the drafting of some 700 young people. And that will bring up the annual intake of the Jamaica Defense Force to 1,000. The procession of flags of our CARICOM member states, carried out by honor guards of the Jamaica Defense Force and the Jamaica National Service Corps. The procession of CARICOM dignitaries now follows the parade of flags. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Erwin LaRocque, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community. Ladies and gentlemen, the heads of state, government, and associate members of the Caribbean Community. The Honorable Gaston Brown, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda. The Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
The procession of flags now complete. We are witnessing the procession of the heads of government.
The Honorable PM Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados.
You are watching our live coverage of the opening ceremony of the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM.
The Honorable Dean Oliver Barrow, Prime Minister of Belize. He is not with us, and the next is the Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada. His Excellency, Brigadier David Granger, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
This year's conference is being held under the chairmanship of Jamaica's Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, who assumed the role of Chairman of CARICOM on July 1, 2018.
His Excellency Jovenel Moïse, President of the Republic of Haiti.
Prime Minister Holness will serve for 6 months until December 31, 2018. He has lead responsibility for external trade negotiations in the CARICOM quasi-cabinet.
The Honorable Romeo Donaldson, Premier of Montserrat.
Jamaica's Prime Minister succeeded outgoing Chairman, His Excellency Jovenel Moïse, President of Haiti. You also heard a resounding applause for the newest Prime Minister of CARICOM, Prime Minister PM Motley of Barbados.
Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis.
While in Jamaica, the CARICOM heads are expected to discuss matters including measures impacting the implementation of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, the CSME, crime and security in the region, and emerging geopolitical developments which can have an impact on the region's growth prospects.
The Honorable Alan Chastanet, Prime Minister of St. Lucia.
CARICOM is actually the oldest surviving integration movement in the developing world. It came into being on July 4, 1973 with the Treaty of Chaguaramas, signed by Prime Ministers Errol Barrow for Barbados, Forbes Burnham for Guyana, Michael Manley for Jamaica, and Eric Williams for Trinidad and Tobago. The treaty was later revised in 2002 to allow for the eventual establishment of the Single Market and Economy, the CSME.
Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
We're coming to you live from the Montego Bay Convention Center, situated along the elegant corridor of Rose Hall in the parish of St. James, Jamaica. Welcome to our live coverage of the opening ceremony of the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM.
His Excellency Désiré Delano Bouterse, President of the Republic of Suriname.
Special welcome to those tuning in on PBCJ, on the JIS Facebook page or website, Jamaica Information Service website, and persons tuning in on YouTube. Welcome to our live coverage of the opening ceremony of the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM.
Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
We are welcoming the heads of government of the member states of CARICOM. Now, CARICOM is a grouping of 20 countries, 15 member states, and 5 associate members. It's home to approximately 16 million people from diverse ethnic backgrounds.
Our associate members, the Honorable E. David Burt, Premier of Bermuda. Dr. the Honorable Orlando Smith, Premier of the British Virgin Islands.
The 5 associate members of CARICOM: Anguilla, Bermuda, the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. The CARICOM community stretches from the Bahamas in the north.
The Honorable Alden McLaughlin Jr., Premier of the Cayman Islands.
To Suriname and Guyana on the South American mainland.
The Honorable Charlene Cartwright Robinson, Premier of the Turks and Caicos Islands.
The Conference of Heads of Government consists of the heads of government of the member states. It's the supreme organ or highest decision-making body of CARICOM, and it determines and provides policy direction for the community.
Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica and the Chairman of CARICOM.
Prime Minister Holness assumed the chairmanship of CARICOM on July 1, and this will continue until December 31. This year's conference is under the theme Building My apologies. This year's conference is under the theme Building Stronger, Resilient and Secure Partnerships for Prosperity.
Their Excellencies, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen. Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of Jamaica. Dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the invocation to be delivered by Pastor Glenn O. Samuels, President, West Jamaica Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists.
Our heads are bowed, our eyes are closed. Sovereign God, to you we lift our hearts in acknowledgement of your sovereignty and your divine blessings over our leaders and our people. We pray your guiding hand in this significant conference. We thank you for divine protection from past ravages. And even as our people enter this new hurricane season, we invoke your divine hand to protect us from the ravages possible. And now, Almighty God, on the chairman of this 39th regular conference, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, we ask for wisdom that he guides as you would guide him. For the heads of government, we thank you for divine protection as they travel. Grant, O gracious Father, that they'll protect not only the independence we treasure, but guide our people towards economic independence. Into your hands we commit this conference and thank you for your promised protection and guiding hand. These we ask in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Samuels. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. It is now time to invite Ambassador Erwin LaRocque, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, to bring the statements with his opening remarks to the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community. Help me welcome him to the microphone, please.
19 of 20 member states, the heads of government of 19 of 20 member states of CARICOM are present here today for the 39th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government.
Their Excellencies, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen, Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica and Chairman of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, His Excellency Jovenel Moïse, President of the Republic of Haiti, our outgoing Chairman, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of the Caribbean Community, Honorable Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Chief Justice, President of the Court of Appeal, Members of Parliament, Members of Cabinet, former Prime Ministers of Jamaica, the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson and Mr. Bruce Golding, heads of regional institutions, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished delegates, distinguished guests, people of the Caribbean community, ladies and gentlemen all. Today, the 4th of July, is CARICOM Day. 45 years ago, on this date, 4 countries signed the Treaty of Chaguaramas. Happy CARICOM Day. As we open this 39th meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, I must at the outset express my profound appreciation to the government and people of Jamaica for the excellent hospitality extended to all of us. The arrangements put in place for the conduct of the meeting ensure an atmosphere conducive to the productive sessions here in Montego Bay, which has a rich history in the integration movement. It was here in Montego Bay in 1947 that the Conference of the Closer Association of the British West Indies rekindled the integration movement. It was here in 1997 that the decision to admit Haiti to membership of the Caribbean Community was taken, and it was here in 2003 that the Rose Hall Declaration on Community Governance was adopted. The opportunity is with us once again to have a historic moment in Montego Bay with respect to the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, the CSME. The community will be led over the next 6 months by the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, as the Chairman of Conference. I have no doubt that under his guidance, the interests of our region will be further advanced. I want to take this opportunity to extend thanks to His Excellency Jovenel Moïse, President of Haiti, for his able leadership of the community since January. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Conference of Heads of Government the Honorable PM Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, Prime Minister Motley is no stranger to the councils of the community and is a committed regionalist who now assumes the role of the lead head of government for the CSME. Prime Minister, I look forward to working closely with you as we advance the CSME. I must also congratulate the Honorable Gaston Brown, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, and Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, who both returned to conference after victories at the polls since the last meeting. Might I add, Prime Minister Motley, that you joined Prime Minister Keith Mitchell in a clean sweep. The Honourable David Burt, Premier of Bermuda, is attending his first meeting of the heads of government, and we look forward to his fresh perspectives on the issues. We will be welcoming to this meeting His Excellency Miguel Diaz-Canel, the President of Cuba, who will be having his first engagement with our heads of government, continuing the fraternal relations between our countries. We will also be welcoming His Excellency Sebastián Pinera, the President of Chile. The community and Chile have strong relations, which no doubt will be enhanced during the discussions between our leaders. Mr. Chairman, heads of government, a short while ago, we witnessed the swearing-in of Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders as the third President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. I congratulate President Saunders on his assumption of this most important office. The CCJ represents the essence of our independence and sovereignty and our commitment to the autonomy of the judicial system. Judges of this court are appointed by an independent regional judicial and legal services commission after a rigorous process of recruitment. The President is appointed by the conference on the recommendation of the RJLSC after a similar process. It is an integral edifice in the regional architecture, providing certainty and predictability in the interpretation and application of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, which established and governs the CSME, our platform for engineering sustainable growth and development in our community. Since the CSME was inaugurated here in Jamaica 12 years ago, we all agree that much has been accomplished under its regimes, but we have not achieved as much as we should have by now. Major policy decisions and adoption of legal instruments take much too long to be negotiated. We must do more and do it more quickly. The success of the CSME is being judged by the public on the basis of our implementation of the measures agreed to that allow our citizens and businesses to benefit. This meeting will include a special session on the single market and economy to look at ways of making it more effective. That session will benefit from the views of a stakeholder consultation, which I convened last month in Georgetown. Participants at that event confirmed that the CSME remained the most viable option and platform to enable the community and its nationals to achieve their goals of sustainable growth and development. They, however, pointed to areas which needed to be improved substantially. They expressed particular concern about the ease of doing business and the movement of skilled nationals. The participants also lamented the lack of compliance with already agreed measures. They stressed the need for an enforcement and accountability framework to encourage implementation and compliance. It is one of the issues which features among the recommendations of the report of the Commission to review Jamaica's relations within CARICOM and CARIFORUM frameworks, which is before this meeting. The views and recommendations of that Commission add a voice to the conversation on the future of CARICOM and the CSME. On Monday in Kingston, I had a social media interaction with the youth of the region, led by the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors. Their topic of choice was their role in advancing the CSME, for which they displayed tremendous enthusiasm and eagerness to be a catalyst for improving implementation. They also expressed their concerns with respect to issues of mental health and requested a regional approach, just as we are doing with non-communicable diseases and HIV/AIDS. The effects of climate change on the region was another topic on which we engaged. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the vulnerability of our member states to natural hazards and the effects of climate change remain serious challenges to our sustainable development. This is even more so in this era of the new normal of megastorms and other highly unusual climatic events as experienced last September. It compels us to become more climate resilient. We must examine how, as a region, we can enhance the capacity to build resilience within member states to resist the effects and recover quickly from these climatic events. Discussions on this matter were held over the last 3 days here in Montego Bay, and a report will be presented to the heads of government at this meeting. At this meeting also, the report of the Marijuana Commission will be presented for consideration. This independent commission, comprising of experts in the fields of law, ethics, sociology, psychiatry, medical and social research, and criminology,